يكون بعده الذي خسرت برؤيته أبصار الناظرين وجزت عن نأته أوهام الواثقين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبو القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المسلمين سيما بقية الله العظيم بقية الله خير لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين ولعنة الدائم على أعدائهم وغاصبي حقوقهم ومنكر فضائلهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Muhammad.
Series of discussions that we are having on the phenomena of love in the school of Imam Hussain alayhi salam come to a resolve of finding out what is it that really makes the Imams or the companions of the companions of the Imams as the companions. What it really takes and the levels that they have, the levels that they have achieved, and the belief system that we have in regards to them, and certain things that we accept in a way blindly because our parents have taught us, and that's how we have brought up, that's how we've been brought up. Possibility of explanation of it, of understanding exists or not. We pointed out last night, I don't want to give more detail of what we have discussed so far, only just a little bit a recap of what we have mentioned last night. With that inqata, with that disconnection from this world, the person reaches to a point where he witnesses the greatness, the azamat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the sovereignty of God. Although these are all mere discussions in order that we increase our ma'rifah of these maqamat and these levels and of those people who have achieved these levels. And we tend to give examples from the contemporary period such as Allama, such as Qazi, such as Imam, to really understand that the possibility do exist. So after a person disconnects from this world, he enters that realm where he sees the azamat, the greatness of the Lord. He witnesses it. And this brings about that state of izzah of Allah, of that honor. And that is why one would say that where Imam says death of izzah and of honor is better to me than the life of a person who is living in sort of موت العزة صلاة على محمد وعلى محمد than living in imprisonment of desires or of the hakim or whatever. So therefore that is that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from that understanding. Now I would like to take you to understand the witnessing of this greatness of the Lord, the sovereignty of the Lord, and this honor, this izzat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which happens to a person on different levels. What are these levels? We will be discussing that tonight. And eventually this reaches that person, or he achieves a level of annihilation, which is called nirvana, which is called fana, in the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the ultimate, the utmost level that he could reach. So as we have some understanding With that disconnection, he enters this sovereignty, this level of greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he witnesses it. So the first thing that he is shown is that tawheed, that oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we know that he is seeing nothing but Allah. The first thing that he sees is that oneness in the af'al, in the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every fail and every action, he regards it and counts that action to be from God. And where he sees all action, because that is the first thing, right? As we were talking about, that the first thing that Allah said is that kun, and that creation has taken place. So that return to him is also through that creation, through these actions, through this azamat, this khilqat, this creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he start, with his eventually practicing that disconnection and intellectualizing the existence as nothing but the signs of God. With that practice, with that sincerity, with that amal, he sees that oneness in the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So every action that takes place, every movement that happens in this earth, in this world, he regards it to be nothing but from the divine, nothing but from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He sees that. And it is not an easy task. A person has to be really on that level to see everything from Allah, from the fail of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from him. That becomes a complete oneness. He is no longer existing. He is seeing the actions at the same time. He hasn't reached to a point where he's seeing not even the actions. He's seeing the actions. He's still in the state of realization of these actions, and he's participating in these actions as well. But the point is that he's seeing this action to be the act of the divine, which is called that tawheed in the af'al, in the fails of, in the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as a matter of fact, this is not the level where, this is not, this is exactly the level where a person could intervene in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that his action will become the act of God, which we talked about, O Prophet, when you're shooting, that is Allah shooting. So it's all about actions here. And this is what it becomes to know that Ism Azam which we talk about. He could do miraculous things because he has that understanding of that oneness in that action. The bringing of the throne of Sheba to Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam, which is one example of this tawheed of af'al, this oneness in the action, because it is the action of that wazir, of that Asaf ibn Waqi'a, of that person who was saleh, who was righteous, who brought that throne. Let's reflect a bit for our youngsters, the whole incident which is mentioned in the Quran, because the story of Sulaiman is very mysterious. The things in regards to Hazrat Sulaiman, his mulk, and what he could do, and the language of animals and birds which he had. If we look at in Surah An-Nahl, verse number 34 and onwards, which talks about the whole story of Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam, in which Hazrat Sulaiman says that who among you can bring her throne, which is the throne of Bilqis, which is the throne of Sheba, before she, the queen of Sheba, comes to me. Queen of Sheba is known to be a kingdom which was just, which was good kingdom, and was in a kingdom that would like to progress, a kingdom that would like to establish justice. This itself shows that Sheba, she wants to come to Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam, right? Because she heard that there is a prophet, and then she wants to learn. She wants to educate herself and basically take that nation towards Kamal, towards progress and development. So she says, I want to go there. But Sulaiman says, even before she comes, who will bring the throne of Shiva to me. One of the person or one of the jinns who was there, he replies that a monstrous jinn, as the verse says, said, I can bring before you even before you stand up. The whole throne, I'll bring it to you before you stand up from the throne. Now, the exegetes have discussed here, does that really mean that at that moment he's standing up? During that time he will bring the throne, that jinn? Or is it really that sitting that Hazrat Sulaiman used to have from morning 9 to 5 attending to the needs of people? 9 to 5 I'm mentioning this, because Hazrat Sulaiman was the king. But look at his kingdom. But look at what type of king he was. He was a king who would go in the evening and sell hoe, the gardening material, that hoe, which we call bead in Farsi, to the people and make his living. That is justice. That is the just king. And he will go and work. His son Dawood the same. He was the one who invented making armor. He would make armor and he would sell. He would not utilize in regards to his position that he has for his benefit or for any of his family benefit. Or financial aid or help, although he's helping them. He opens his store, his kingdom, 9 to 5, he attends to the needs, advises people, farmers, people coming from different places, what to do and what not to do. But he closes his store down or his office down and then he go and work. So he was a just king, Hazrat Sulaiman. And he says, the verse says, the exegetes have said that it means when he stands up, meaning that when he finishes his sitting, that 9 to 5, and then at 5 o'clock the throne will be there. But some says that no, it's just his standing up. Just he's sitting at the throne and he stands up, the throne will be here. But after that, there was, the verse continues. And he says that before you even stand, I am powerful and trustworthy. He says, I have that qudra, I am trustworthy as well. This means that monstrous jinn wasn't really a trustworthy as such, where he has to claim and say that I am trustworthy. Because Sulaiman had control of a lot of people. He has imprisoned many evil jinns as well to make use of them in order to make the city, because of the power which Sulaiman had, right? So here the jinn claims that I will be trustworthy, don't worry about it. I am powerful, but I am trustworthy, I'll bring it for you. But after that, the one who had the knowledge of the book, there was someone else who had the knowledge of the book, he says, I can bring it to you before even you blink your eye. I'll bring it that quick. Because he had the knowledge of the book and he said, I will bring it to you, even before that. And, there is discussion in regards to where Hazrat Sulaiman says that, Haza min fazli, this is the honor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is how He wants to test me or test us whether we are from the thanksgiving individuals or not. We are from the shakirin or not. That ni'mat is given, whatever ni'mat is given to us, we have to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Hazrat Sulaiman is pointing out to that as well, which is not our discussion. However, here he said, even before you blink that eye, and he did. He brought that throne. Where did he get that from? He had the knowledge from that book. He has part of the knowledge from that book through which he could manifest, meaning that he had that knowledge of Tawheed Af'ali. He has reached to that point where he sees all actions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he was able to do that because his act was the act of God. He was that powerful. He was seeing his action as the action of God and he did it just before blinking of an eye. Just like how Amar Amaita is right. Oh Prophet, when you are shooting an arrow, it's not you. So all of these karamat and miracles in regards to the Masumin alayhi salam is that because they have reached to that level that they themselves are manifesting nothing but the fail of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they could do that. They have that capability and possibility to do it. That's what miracle is. Not only their living, but their bodies also have reached that purity that their shrine becomes the place of miracle, where it cures. So they have this tawheed of af'al, that actions, all actions is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when they reach that level, they themselves manifest that fail of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They themselves manifest that Ism-e-Azam, that knowledge, which we talked about Ism-e-Azam earlier, that magical name of God through which one could do wonders. People think that this magical name of God, that Ism-e-Azam, is some sort of name. It's not, but it is the maqam, it is the station where a person reaches to that Ism-e-Azam. He himself becomes Ism-e-Azam, and then he could intervene the khilqat, he could intervene the creation, and he could do whatever he wants, but it's not he, but it is he, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the maqam or station of Ism-e-Azam where a person reaches. That is the maqam of Tawheed Af'ali, where he is witnessing all actions from the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And when he partakes in that, his action is manifestation of his action. Now the question arises here, just to answer that, why did Hazrat Sulaiman did not do? Was he not Insani Kamil, that perfect human being, where he has to ask another of his wazir, or the verses, an abd, a person who was saleh, a righteous person did that for Hazrat Sulaiman. One here, the exegetes have mentioned that Hazrat Sulaiman, sometimes a teacher wants to test the students, right? Really wanted to see whether they have achieved that rank or not. So Hazrat Sulaiman was testing, and that student of his, that wasi of his, had that knowledge, and then he fulfilled it. He was successful in doing so. So that's why Hazrat Sulaiman did not. And here, that knowledge from the kitab, from the ilm al-kitab, as they say, when there was another verse in Surah Ra'd, which is the last verse of Surah Ra'd, which says that Kafa billahi shahida bayni wa baynakum. When nobody was accepting the Prophet as the Rasulullah, then he says, it is sufficient enough for me that my Allah accepts me, and the one who have the knowledge of the book accepts me. Then the Imams were questioned that, what does this verse mean? Who is that who have the knowledge of the book? It is no one but Ali ibn Abi Talib. As they say, the knowledge of the book is about 73 letters. That the knowledge of Allah is of 73 letters, and this person who brought that throne, the one who brought that throne within the blinking of the eye, only knew one letter of that knowledge. Because he says in the verses, he had the knowledge from the book, who had the knowledge of the book, but not not knowledge from the book, but rather than, knowledge of the book, of the whole book. But it was Amir al-Mu'mineen who says, I have the knowledge of the book, of the whole book. But he only knew one letter. So therefore, here in regards to the af'al and the actions, is that position and that maqam a person reaches, and then he's able to really bring that. And that's why we tend to see, on the plain of Ashura, Imam Hussain said, for me it is nothing to really, indicate to the whole army with my two fingers, and they will vanish, they will die, because he is on that level. When did he say that? When that head of the jinns, jinns, they came, genies, they came to the Imam and said, can we help you? Can we assist you in this battle? That you are having? The Imam sort of asked that head of the, jinns to look through my finger. And they did, and he said they saw the army of angels that is there, that could really create a havoc, could really destroy the whole army of Yazid if he wanted. But it was really that test, how people will be tested. It is really that insaniyat, that Imam Hussain acquired that pure human way and methodology to prove and establish his point, and he did. Otherwise, it would be saying that, he did it miraculously. The example will not be there. He acquired that route. Anyways, so here, the Masumeen, they are on that maqam, they are on that level because of that love, because of that disconnection which they have from this dunya, and they have entered that realm of izzah and sovereignty of the Lord that they could see. They have achieved that position of tawheed af'ali. Then another step which is a bit more deeper, that the person, still it is actions there, and that is the oneness of the names and the awsaf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They witness nothing but to be one only. That is much more refined, much more subtle. Because fail is still that action. It's like speech. Speech is in parameters or within the domain of words or letters are there, and then there is time, and then there is space. It is happening there. But the idea is inside, which is immaterial. So that's how the name of Allah is, which is completely immaterial in a way. For that person, for that spiritual wafer, for that waliullah, that is completely pure. And although his actions are pure as well, the speech, the Quran is also pure, but that returns back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, returns back to those names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, returns back to that is the names which one call the Jalal and Jamal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything, it returns back to that. And that also requires a soul that have that power and ability to really see that. It is not for Tom, Dick and Harry, so to speak. Amr, Bakr or Zayd. One have to be on that level. See those af'al, and then after that af'al, and it's all through, munqati', through that disconnection, through that stepping over the nafs, through that ahkam, ilahi. It's all through that. You should not forget that, right? And then he reaches to that level of the asma and the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is where it becomes, as is mentioned in the Quran, I will use the Quran to prove that, this is where it becomes that the ghazab and the jalal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes the jalal of that waliullah. Because he has reached on that level. Alayhi revenge and anger doesn't really make sense in terms of the existence of God. What is it? Or sadness or sorrow. In the story of Musa, when Musa came back and he saw the Qawm worshipping that golden calf, the samari which he had made, Allah says that he was very sorrowful because Musa had done so much, have brought them out from that slavery of Pharaoh, crossed the river Nile with all the miracles and all that. Still, even after that, they haven't really accepted the prophecy or the prophet or the oneness of God or the tawheed which Musa alayhi salam was preaching and teaching them all his life. Then the verse says that God was sorrowful. Does God can be sorrowful? Or in these verses of the Quran which says that, I'll read from Surah Zukhruf. It begins by saying, verse number 51, the Pharaoh shouted to his people. This is at a time where the miracle of the python, serpent is already done. And the magicians, they lost it. And they accepted and they brought Iman upon Musa alayhi salam, and they are in prison and they are jailed. After that big competition that took place in front of the whole nation, Pharaoh was defeated. They say that Pharaoh went into depression, that he wasn't seen in public for a very long period of time. And because he lost it, that sort of big competition that took place. And on the day of Zina, because Pharaoh said that, let's have a competition. It's very psychological warfare was going on between Musa and Pharaoh. Pharaoh says that, I will defeat you and I will invite all the magicians from all over across my empire, and they will come and I will defeat you. And when do you want to do that? This is like a psychological pressuring for Musa alayhi salam. And then in return, Musa alayhi salam said, let's have it on the Yom Zina, on the day of the Zina, on the day of the feast. That everybody is there. Pharaoh was shocked. If someone who is a bit timid, he would say, oh, okay, let's do it quickly. If I lose, then no one will know. Musa said, let's have it on that day. The day of the feast where everybody will come. Let's have Pharaoh was shocked once again. And what's going on here? This is how the psychological warfare works. So anyway, after all of that happened, Pharaoh went in a state of depression and he wasn't seen. And finally, all the other sort of, the priests of the temples, they came to Pharaoh and said that what's going on? We are losing grounds. People are converting and accepting the deen of Musa alayhi salam. And he's already taken his people without your permission. Because always, see how Allah wants to do the hidayah and guide. Even Pharaoh. Musa could have taken right in the first day his Nabi. He has reached that maqam, right? Allah says that I have chosen you. This is all after that, tajalli and all, after witnessing Allah and all that incident. I have chosen you. And you are the Salih, he has that power. But Allah even wants to guide that one soul which is Pharaoh. Wants to even save that soul. Which is clearly seen in the battle of Karbala as well. Imam Hussain alayhi salam even wants to save Shimr to that last minute. But when it comes to us, we are the first one to, disconnect and say, few words in order to show that, we are on haq. We get short-tempered, judgmental, and so on and so on. Anyway, so here Allah wants even to save the soul of the Pharaoh. And finally, he takes his men, and here is the verse which says, the Pharaoh shouted to his people, my people, is the kingdom of Egypt not mine? And can you not see that the streams flow from beneath my palace? Am I not better than this lowly man who can barely express himself? Because Musa used to stutter. And then, why have bracelets of gold not being given to him? And why have not some angels not accompanied him? This is the argument which Pharaoh is using. Thus he made his people thus he took his people and they followed him. They were dumb, so to speak. They certainly were a sinful people when they invoked our anger. Now this is Allah saying, when they invoked our anger, we took revenge on them by drowning them altogether. There's no question of revenge for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't need to take revenge. He is, Malikul Mulk, right? He is Hayyul Qayyum. So he uses that. He says, we took revenge. This revenge is in the understanding of Musa with Pharaoh. There's that duality there. For Allah, there is no duality. But he is saying this revenge is the revenge of that Nabi. This revenge is the revenge of that Wali. The anger is the anger of Musa and the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one. So that is why when we say that the ghazab of Fatima is the ghazab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The anger of Fatima is the anger of the Prophet and the anger of Prophet is the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This means that she has crossed all these levels and she is on that level of perfection where she is witnessing and seeing nothing but the level of Asma. No wonder Hazrat Zainab Salamullah alayha says that Ma ra'aytu illa jamia. That when Ibn Ziyad questioned how did we defeated you? What did she say? I saw nothing but beauty in the plain of Karbala. Can a sister speak like that? Unless if she's on that level where she is Alimatu Bila Mu'alima. So that is the level of Tawheed Asma. The Tawheed of Sifat. All of the Sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be drowned in the Zat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the essence of God. His Sifat of Rahmaniyat is no different from his Sifat of Qahariyat. They are all different qualities and they all annihilate in the Zat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In another hadith of 6 Imam Ja'far Sadiq, where he says that in order to describe the companion of Amir, he says that there are people who worship the name, they are kafir. There are people who worship the meaning and the name, they are mushrik. The name meaning that Allah. There are people who worship the name, just the name, and they are kafir. But there are people who worship the name and also the meaning, they are mushrik. They are worshipping the name but there are people who only worships the essence, the meaning, and they are the true companions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they are negating all the names that Allah have, and they are only worshipping the essence, the Zat, the real, and that they are the true companions of Amirul Mu'mineen. So this is nothing but pointing out to that reality that the Ashab have reached. Awliya Allahi wa ahibba'o. They are the awliya, they are the waliullahs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as a matter of fact, that name wali is the name, that is the ism, that is the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is given to them. Once again, because they have raised themselves to the sifat, awsaf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why do you think the Prophet is known as Raufur Rahim in the Quran, where Raufur Rahim is Allah? The Quran, the verse itself points out to that, it says that لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. Prophet is the one who is Rauf, and he is Rahim, which is Rauf is the name of Allah and Rahim is the name of Allah. But Allah is saying he is Raufur Rahim. This means that he has reached to that maqam of Tawheed Sifat, of those names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has annihilated himself. He is nothing but Rauf and Rahim. To Mu'mineen, and once again that Mu'mineen is there because it's Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allah, Rahman and Rahim. Allah is Rahman to the whole creation. He is merciful, but He is Rahim to the Mu'mineen. So here the same quality, the same name, the same sifat is given to the Prophet because he has reached to that level. And when that happens, basically, the ghazab, the anger, all that becomes of that waliullah to Allah. Innama waliyukum Allah wa rasulih. Once again, that wali is the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one is the one who gives zakat in ruku. And no one else but Ali ibn Abi Talib have given zakat, and this verse came. Finally, is that ultimate, which is the Tawheed of Zat, which is much higher. That one really, at least we could discuss this, but even that is not, one cannot really comprehend. What is that? To really annihilate in the Zat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We could only understand from some of the du'as that are there. Once in the battle of Siffin, Amirul Mu'mineen was fighting and he was saying, Yahu ya man lahu illahu. First time he uttered that. And Ammar Yasir comes to Amirul Mu'mineen and said, Yahu ya man lahu illahu. What is that? He said, this is something that Hazrat Khizr alayhi salam brought it to me and I was taught, and this is nothing but that annihilation in that Zat, is that Ismi Azam, is that ultimate, that name. Because if you look at that, it's who, which is really a mystery. There is no name. Who means there's nothing, there's nothingness. That's what it is. There's nothingness. As we talked about, nothing existed, it was silence completely. So this Yahu, Ya man la illahu. Even illahu. You're who, but even that nothingness, that no one have that nothingness as well. That is you. And this is happening where? In that battle. So that means at that state, at that point, he is on that level of Af'al, on that level of Asma, on that level of who? On the level of that Zat. That's where it becomes, that they become the perfect manifestation of God, in which we recite, and I always mention that in the dua of Rajab, and that is, La farqa baynaka wa baynaha. There is no difference between Allah and them. Illa ibaduka wa khalquka. Except that they are abd and they are creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because they are annihilated in that nur, in that Zat. And many of the in many of the instances we have the hadith where it says that there is certain hour for the Prophet that he is annihilated in the Zat and he is without any wahi, he is downloading and he is connected to God. Because a Prophet is connected to God through an angel, through Jibreel, for example. But Prophet says that there is an hour during the day where there is no malak, where there is no one, but I am direct in connection with my Lord at that hour. And that is that, And this usually happens it begins with the halat of ghashwa, as they say. It's a state of unconsciousness. That the Imam says that I was reciting Quran, and then he goes unconscious, and the slave sprinkles some water and wakes him up, and he said, I was reciting the Quran, and I went unconscious because I started hearing the Quran from the one who have revealed it. So a person reaches that level. That possibility is there, and it has been basically prescribed or described by the halat, by the different states. And that is why you tend to find, the constant zikr of the Imam on the day of Ashura. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. These are all pointing out to that presence of the asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is perhaps what is making the Imam so difficult to really let go of shimr. Because it's la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And that's what the imtihan is, that's what the test becomes. That when that slave is on that level of annihilation completely, where he sees nothing but the afal, nothing but the asma, at the same time he has to be in a state of that duality. That is a test. And no, that is why when that sword comes on the head of Amirul Mu'mineen, he says, Ustabir bil Kaaba. By the Lord of the Kaaba, I have been successful. Because he did not deter in terms of the position and the maqam that he was at. In terms of that ma'rifah. Sallallahu Muhammad wa Muhammad. Final step towards and then Messiah. And that is when that happens, this abd, this person, this waliullah is chosen. He becomes salih. And he becomes that mukhlas, not mukhlis. Because there are two things. One is that mukhlas with a fatih lam, and one there is mukhlis with a kasr lam. Right? So here when we look at the verses of the Quran which describes in regards to mukhlasin, it says la ughwiyannahum ajma'in, the shaitan says. This is Surah Araf. Surah Sad. Surah Araf as well. Surah Sad, it says la ughwiyannahum ajma'in, verse number 82 and 83. Illa ibadaka minhum al-mukhlasin. I will not be able to deviate them, trap them. I will trap them, the insan, the Quran, he has promised he will try to deviate and trap us. Illa, except those who are mukhlasin, with that fatila. Those who are the purified, sincere ones, where Allah have purified them. Mukhlasin are those who Allah purified them. Allah take them. Because we said in the very beginning that love and the beloved, once that happens, Allah takes over.
Subhanallah.
Allah takes over, Allah is the protector. Shaitan will no longer go any near of them. That's what the word says. I will not be able to go near them because they are already mukhlas. In another verse it says, Ma tudzuna illa, this is in regards to the day of judgment. Ma tudzuna illa ma kuntum ta'malun. What they will achieve is what they have carried out in terms of the action. All human beings, all insan on the day of judgment, they will acquire what they have, except ma kuntum ta'malun, what they have done, amal. Ta'malun illa ibadallahi mukhlasin. But what mukhlasin achieve is beyond imagination and comprehension, what they will get. Those who are good, they will be rewarded, but the mukhlasin, is something else, and they are on a different level. فَإِنَّهُمْ لَا مُحْضَرُونَ. All will be present, hudur, on the day of judgment. Everyone. It's the day of judgment, they are all raised, they are all hadir. But what about إِلَّا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ مُخْلَصِينَ? Mukhlasin are not there. Mukhlasin are the one who becomes that mizan itself, that criteria of our actions. That balance through which our actions will be judged. They become that. They are the haqq, they are the manifestation of that truth because they have annihilated themselves in fail and asma and zat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have reached that maqam. There is no need of them to be huzur, but rather they will be used as a criteria through which we will be judged. And this is where the revolution or the inqilab of love will come about. That if we have that love of Ahlul Bayt alayhi wasalam, this is where that shafaat comes about. This is where it says that Hussein will not enter paradise until the lovers of Hussein enter the paradise. So they become that. And all of these hadiths that talk about, oh, shafaat, oh, the ghadab of Ahlul Bayt and Masumin, it's all in the Quran. It is all on that basis. It's all on that principles of mysticism and philosophy. It's not out of the blue that it's just a belief that it existed. No. So mukhlasin are that. And it says, Subhanallah amma yusifun. Who will be able to really describe and talk us and teach us about Allah? Illa ibadallahi mukhlasin. Only those who are the sincere ones, those who are the mukhlas, they are the one who will be able to really rectify and teach and depict and describe. So all this Sayyid Sajjadiyah, all these du'as that we have, all these ziyarat that we have, which really talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the beauty of Shia Islam. That our imams have reached to that maqam, that they are able to really teach us the existence, the knowledge that they could provide us about our Creator. You know how sad that soul is that he walked on this earth and he couldn't even recognize who the Creator is. The beauty is in that, as Hazrat Amir says, that I would not like to die young, but I would rather like to die old and know my Lord.
Subhanallah, subhanallah.
So the criteria of entering paradise is nothing. That's not the purpose. But it's really to know the Lord.
Subhanallah.
And when a person embarks on that journey, it's full of tests. If it wasn't, then the Ahlul Bayt wouldn't have been tested. If Allah is merciful, is Rahman and Rahim, look the pain and suffering that they had. Every soul who have walked on this journey of recognizing the Lord, there is test on all different levels. And we see that. The only, as we had mentioned earlier, the only group of people who are tested the most is the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib. All of them. If they are on that level where they cannot even deter and understand, but at least they are Ali believers, still they are tested. Or if they are on that level where they really recognize the wilayat and the wilayat of the 12 Masumin, that is on a greater level. And the Ashab on the eve of Ashura were tested in the same fashion, and they stood fast because they completed that journey. They have entered that realm of Mukhlasin. And on the ninth night, as they say, that Imam alayhi salam asked, as they wanted to attack on the ninth night itself, Umar Sa'ad, but Imam sent Habib ibn Mazahir and Zuhair and Abu al-Fasil to really speak to them. See, the day of Ashura, the story of Karbala, is very, very well calculated by the Imam. Every second, every minute, every hour, the strategy Imam used is really amazing. They wanted to ambush and attack. One could have fought on that ninth night and so on. Imam said, no, ask them that a night is given to us so that we worship, so that we pray, so that we recite Quran, so that we do astaghfar. That respite of the Imam up until today, look what that permission is doing. What that permission is promoting up until today till the day of judgment. It's becoming that source which Imam really wanted to really revive the Islam, the true Islam, which he did. So every speech of his, every strategy that he has done, utilized, is well calculated. So Umar Saad says that no, we will not. As they wanted to attack, Abul Fazl and Habib ibn Wazir and Zuhair, they came, and here Umar Saad says we are attacking, but Abul Fazl says, you stay, let me go and ask my Mawla, my master. And while Abul Fazl came here, Habib ibn Wazir were engaging them in discussion and saying that what on earth you guys are doing? You are killing the household of the Prophet. So they were continuously trying to guide them. And then finally Abul Fazl comes back and says, we want a night. And finally the permission was given. Look what's happening tonight, on the ninth night. They started worshipping the Maghribain prayer with Jamaat, with my master, with our Mawla. And then that khutbah is delivered, in which he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which he thanks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the Nabuwat, for the Quran, for the Deen. And finally he prays that let us all be from the Shakireen, from those who will thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the test is coming up and we want to be thankful in every state. And finally, after that, Amma he says that my ashab are the best of ashab. My Ahl Bayt are the best of Ahl Bayt. And I would ask my ashab and my family members to take the opportunity of the night. Why don't you go save your lives? Don't stay here, because these people are enemies, firstly of my blood, not yours. And I will guarantee you paradise, don't worry about it. Your test is over now. That means it's finished. They want me, they will get me. You just go. You have done your share. After that speech, there was silence. Can anyone really speak after that strong speech of Abdullah Hussain Islam? There was that haiba, that awe. But who breaks that silence? Abul Fazl Abbas, and he could only break that silence. He says, my master, paradise for us is no paradise with our master. How can that be for paradise? But where our master is not there. We cannot even comprehend and imagine ourselves that we could live without you. They are all fana and highlighted in the Zat of Hussein. And Hussein is fana in the Zat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They all have become Hussein. There was not only one Hussein who became Shaheed. There were 72 Hussein who were butchered on the day of Ashura. La yawmuka yawmuka ababullah. There is no day like the day of Ashura. And after that, one after the other, Habib ibn Wazir, Zuhair, they all pay allegiance to the Imam. This was finished. Then Imam, as the Ashab perhaps, because we have to really use different traditions and join them together and really understand what was going on. Perhaps they all went to their tents, started supplicating and praying, but there was one Sahabi, it was his task, every hour he should guard the tent of the Imam. He should be outside, guarding. He's not busy in terms of the ibadat in that sense of the word, but he was guarding the tent of the Imam. It says Burayl was guarding the tent of the Imam. And then Imam comes out of the tent, and perhaps if for those who have gone to the Khaymaga, they could picture that, they could imagine that. He was going from one tent to the other to really see what was going on in the tents. And tomorrow is the day, it's Ashura. So he goes in the tent of, the mother of Hazrat Qasim alayhi salam, and there she says that, oh Qasim, tomorrow is the day of test. Do not be the source or the sign of despair for myself, because they would say the mother haven't done proper training to his son and he did not go and sacrifice his life for the Imam. So you have to represent Hassan and Mushtaba. So tomorrow you got to sacrifice. Then he moves forward. He looks at the tent of Hazrat Zainab, in which he has made On and Muhammad in front of her and exchanging and speaking to her. He says, as On, your grandfather was, Jafar al-Tayyar. And I want you to show the art of war of Jafar al-Tayyar. Not just I want to hear that these are the children of Jafar, grandsons of Jafar Tayyar, but I want to hear that Jafar Tayyar is in the battleground. Your grandfather from the mother's side is Ali ibn Abi Talib. He ties the turban of Ali ibn Abi Talib. I want the enemies to say that Ali is in the battleground. That's how I want you to fight tomorrow. He moves further. The reciter have recited, one of the scholars, he says that he attended the tent of Kulthum. And he hears the sound of crying of Kulthum, because in every tent the mothers and the wives are preparing their loved ones and they are happy. They are celebrating because the purpose of life is Hussein. But there is a crying noise coming from the tent of Farwa. He goes closer to listen and says, I have no one that I could sacrifice. But at the same time, this Rabbi reports that there was Abu Fazl Abbas there. There was an exchange of dialogue going on there. Says that Farwa says, I have no one to sacrifice. Here Abu Fazl says, I'm not in a position to say that I'm your son, but take myself as your slave and I will sacrifice on your behalf for Imam Hussein, for your brother. And as he moves further and he goes towards the battleground, to really examine the ground, how it is, to really see that how the battle will take place. It's very calculated. It's not like let's go and fight. No, every little thing. If you look at the reports of the Maqtal, that how he fought and how he pushed the army till the walls of Kufa, how he conquered the east and then how he conquered the west, and then he made a mark with his spear. So here he goes towards the battlefield and he stops at one place in the battleground. He gets down from the steed and started to cry. And Burair says, I couldn't control myself because Imam was crying, so I moved forward because he was afraid and he wanted to protect the Imam, and he's there, to protect, and anyone will ambush or attack him. But he moved forward and he asked and inquired that